Today is December 15th, 2022. I am Cole Rabe, and this is a conversation I am having with Stacy White, who is my mom. Okay. When and where were you born, Mom?
Buffalo, New York, March 10th, 1970.
Okay. Do you like Buffalo more than Rockland?
Well, I only remember a little bit of my childhood in Buffalo because I moved when I was 5. So a lot of those memories are compressed. But that was when my mother was alive. So for that reason, I have really good memories of Buffalo.
Okay. And where'd you move?
From when I left Buffalo. Our first stop in California was Rohnert Park for 1 year before we moved to Occidental.
Okay.
In Sonoma County.
Okay. How did we end up in Occidental?
You didn't end up in Occidental.
No, I mean like you. How did you end up in Occidental? Like why?
Oh, why? Okay, that's an interesting question. I don't remember the reason that my dad and my sister's mother, who is not my mother, decided to move from Buffalo to California. They just wanted a fresh start and warmer weather. I don't actually know how they chose Occidental. It's a good question for me to ask my dad.
All right. What is your earliest childhood memory?
I remember sitting on the carpet in the living room, probably when I was 3, watching TV. I think it was Sesame Street, and I remember my mother being in the house.
Sounds like a good memory. Do you remember any popular fads from your youth, like popular hairstyles or crazy clothes?
Oh yeah, I'm a product of the 80s, so feathered hair, all the things that go along with 80s neon colors, acid wash jeans. A lot of the hairstyles for the boys are coming back, the longer hair, mullets. For the girls, big earrings, beaded earrings. Then I went into the Madonna look when I was like a teenager that had like the black leather and the lace. I mean, there were a lot of popular fads from the 80s. I'm proud to be a member of the generation.
So like when you were my age, like what did you dress up like?
Well, when I was graduating high school, I would say it was still, that was 87, 88. So still the Madonna phase, black leather jacket, like I said, lace. I was considered a new waver. So if you ever watch The Breakfast Club,
I've seen it, yeah.
Okay, so it is actually a good depiction of what life was there like then. You were either, a jock, you were a new waver, you were kind of a dropout type, you were a nerd, and I mean that was gross generalizations.
So what were you?
The new waver, like Molly Ringwald with the boots and the skirt and I had the exact hairstyle. Everybody wanted to look like her. I have a photo in high school with my hair on one side just like her hair was. Well, short on one side, over to the a bob over the brushed over one.
What were your favorite songs in music?
Everything 80s, you know what I like.
Yeah.
The Cure, all the new wave stuff. Duran Duran, The Cure, Simple Minds, Tears for Fears, Wham, Madonna, Prince, U2. I mean, you can look through all my albums and I'll tell you should play some. It's the best music ever.
Okay. Maybe I'll put some in the background of the video.
Okay.
What were your favorite things to do for fun?
What age are we talking about?
High school.
Okay, well, I was working since I was 15 and a half at the mall.
Where were you working? At the mall?
Oh, you scared the cat. My first job was at the mall because I needed to be able to, buy the clothes I wanted and afford to drive a car. So from that age, I really didn't do any extracurricular activities because it was either school or working. But we used to go to dances, Quake dances, what they were called, and listen to all the great music that we loved, and just hang out with friends, very similar to what you do now.
All right.
Go to movies.
Who were your friends in high school?
Well, you know a lot of the same women that I'm friends with now. Almost 40 years. Carrie, Nicole, Lloyd, Jesse, Dana,
Yeah.
Lisa. You know them all. They're still my best friends.
Um. Uh. How were holidays celebrated?
Hmm.
I don't remember.
Well, that's an interesting question. Because you know your grandpa. I
Yeah.
grew up with my dad. He was actually not very structured when it came to holidays. After he broke up with my sister's mom, um, she was the one that kind of did Christmas. But when my mother was alive, we did Hanukkah.
Mm-hmm.
So after they broke up, which I was 9 years old, so in my teenage years, we didn't have a tree. My dad really didn't do holidays. I kind of celebrated it with my friends. We did like the spirit of Christmas, but we never had a tree. When I would go back east to Buffalo to visit my relatives, we would do Hanukkah. So that's why I like to embrace both holidays, and I like to go all out with a lot of decorations because I didn't really have that growing up myself.
Okay. What do you know about your family surname?
Well, you mean like White or my
Yeah.
mom's side of the family?
White.
Cohen.
Didn't Grandpa change it to White?
Your grandpa did not, but my grandfather, to avoid persecution and anti-Semitism, our family name was Rosencrantz, and he did not want it to sound Jewish, and so he changed it to White.
Wow, okay.
To avoid anti-Semitism. Reese, that's not your toy. Get out of there.
Are there any special heirlooms, photos, or other memorabilia that have been passed down in our family?
Well, you could put your video to the bronze statue that my mother was making. Huh?
I don't think he cares, but...
Okay, well, when you're talking about heirlooms, to me, it's everything that was involved with my mother.
I didn't know that was an heirloom, actually.
She made that before she died. She was an art teacher, and she made that bronze statue. And we have several paintings around the house that she did.
Yeah.
And those are very important to me. I have her china from their wedding with Grandpa in the china hutch. That was passed on from her.
Okay. What world events had the most impact on you while you were growing up?
Well, I mean, obviously, I didn't experience World War II and anti-Semitism and Hitler, but I feel like that experience has always carried through our culture to never forget that time. I mean, to be honest, there were a lot of political events that happened in the 80s, but I was a teenager and I wasn't focused on the news and what was happening. I don't feel like it impacted my life. I mean, I'm going to be honest about that. So I probably just have to say personally, I don't think that anti-Semitism has actually, personally affected me in the sense that I don't ever feel like I was discriminated against because I was Jewish, but there have been comments made and I still feel like I identify with a culture that has been prosecuted from that historical time, and it still is in our society today, so I do identify with that experience.
Okay. When or how did you meet Dad?
Well, that's very interesting you brought that up because I was in Los Angeles for a budget meeting today in Calabasas, and the restaurant where we met is right near our office. So I was actually pointing that out to my coworkers that I met your dad at that restaurant because there was live music on Sundays and people would go outside and watch the live music, and he was with a couple friends and I was with a couple friends and we met.
Okay. What was it like when you were proposed to?
Is there a different question?
Okay. Where and when did you get married?
So your dad and I got married in at Calamigos Ranch at a beautiful location in Topanga Canyon.
Where is that?
It's down near. It's between Thousand Oaks and Malibu, like over the canyon. We could look at the photos sometimes. It was gorgeous. It was kind of a destination spot for retreats and weddings. So they had like man-made waterfalls, but in the woods, and there was like a little cabin space where we had the reception, and it was absolutely beautiful.
Okay.
That was September 1st, 2002.
What memory stands out most from your wedding day?
That it was the hottest day of the year, but what happened was because we would get the coastal weather a week before the wedding, it was starting to really cool down. So I ordered all of these space heaters, like almost $2,000 to rent it because I thought people would be freezing because it was freezing down at night. And then literally like 5 or 6 days later, we had a heat wave. And your dad didn't even keep his tuxedo on to the altar because he was so hot and sweating that the photos of us under the huppah, which is the Jewish canopy, he's in a vest and he had to take his jacket off and give it to Dale because he was so hot. So that was kind of an interesting twist about the wedding.
Okay. All right. How did you choose me and Carter's names?
Well, your dad and I liked the letter C names for boys. If either one of you were a girl, I wanted it, in honor of my mother. That's kind of a Jewish tradition. Her name was Phyllis with the P, is to use like the same initial. But I did not like any names for boys that started with P, like Peter or Paul, or they just weren't. I didn't feel connected. Not that I don't like them, but it just didn't. And your dad and I just would kind of work through different options, and we both liked C names. There's no particular significance to the first names, but your middle name, Jackson, was significant in the sense that my dad's middle name is Jack, and it also represented Jackson Browne, who was one of your dad's favorite artists. And then Carter's middle name, Pearson, starts with P, which is after my mother's name, Phyllis.
Yeah, I know that one. If you could have had any other profession, what would it have been?
These are really interesting questions. In college, I was very connected to global peace and security, environmentalism. That was kind of the start of that movement in the late 80s. And I always wanted to work for Greenpeace and just help protect animal habitats and just do something that was a little bit more, thought-provoking and conscious and give back to the world. So now I don't do that, working in the business world and working for owners in real estate. It's not as philanthropic.
Yeah. What is one thing you want people to remember about you?
Well, I hope that people feel that I was a caring human being, and I often hear that people say that I have a positive aura and positive vibes, and that's something important to me. So
I agree. Of all the things you learned from your parents, which was the most valuable?
Well, I often recite Grandpa's mantras, which is, doesn't hurt to ask. The worst they can say is no. I think that's an important life lesson because to be assertive is important in life, to do it the right way, to ask for what you need whether it's in a relationship, a working relationship, a personal relationship, if you feel like you've been wronged in a business transaction, to make it right, to be able to effectively, communicate and negotiate your needs is important, whether they're granted or not. So I think that was a good life lesson that he taught me.
Okay. What did you admire most about Dad?
About your dad?
Yeah.
Can you skip that one?
Okay.
Or do you really want me to?
No, it's okay. You don't have to
Okay.
answer it.
I like that he loves you guys.
Who was the oldest relative you remember as a child, and what do you remember about them?
Well, Uncle Lenny just turned 101. So
Well,
is
like
that
as
what
a
you
child, like who was like the oldest you remember?
Oh. Well, I have very faint memories of my great grandfather, my grandmother's father. He passed away when I was really young, but I do have a faint memory of him.
And what is that?
I mean, I just remember him being in the house and being with the family, but I wasn't. He passed away when I was pretty young, so I guess it'd probably just be the connection we have with Uncle Lenny and the fact that he's still alive, which is great. Just turned 101 and is my
Yeah.
great uncle. He's the elder in the family.
Yeah. What stories have come down from your parents or grandparents?
Well, it's too bad we couldn't have spent more time with my grandmother, may she rest in peace, and my uncle, may he rest in peace, because the stories of my family on my mom's side and their stories growing up with my grandfather's produce store during the Depression, and in Buffalo, and my uncle working there, and my mom's side of the family just were always very hardworking.
Mm-hmm.
And my uncle worked in the store when he was very young, and just the stories just that would circle with that side of the family when I go and visit just always made me feel really connected. My dad's side of the family, I mean, he lost his brothers when I was very young, and he lost his mom when I was still in high school, so there wasn't a lot of like quality family time with extended family members. So for me, it was mostly the conversations with my mom's side of the family and what it was like growing up in the Depression.
What was school like for you as a kid? What were your best and worst subjects?
Well, that's interesting because growing up in Occidental, it's kind of a hippie town.
Yeah.
And the school was named Harmony, and they had what they called an alternative program, which meant that they would combine 3 grades at once. And I started that in 3rd grade, then 4th grade, and then 5th grade. In 6th grade, I was in my own grade. So, if you can imagine being in a classroom as a 3rd grader with 5th graders, that's a really
that sounds like a bad idea.
Span of different levels of kids. Or on the reverse, if you're a 5th grader, you're with younger.
That's like what, like 8-year-olds with like 11-year-olds or something?
Up to 12. I mean, usually you're 13, I think, in 6th grade. So, but during that time, because I would call, it was like a hippie school, they taught things a little bit differently. Like there was a lot of creative free time, Dungeons and Dragons, and different things in the classroom that I don't think you'd ever see in a structured school environment here. A lot of opportunity to be creative and kind of you would choose your own path in the classroom, like when you would do reading, when you would do math. It was very much of a, you drive the bus with your education, which was weird. But again, it was a hippie school, so that makes sense.
You didn't like it?
I mean, I remember liking it. There wasn't anything I didn't like, and it was such a small school. I was with this, same kids year over year. Not like I feel like, well, I guess that would be the same here for Valley View.
Yeah, I mean, I still know
there were
like
a
all the
couple of
kids from Valley
classrooms,
View.
yeah, that you'd alternate. And going into high school, I mean, I've always been a good student. As you know, I was a straight A student, and it was always important to me to be at my personal best and to do the best I can. So I was just always very competitive in high school too. Like there was always the smart kids that we would always compare notes with what their grades they got, and just not that I wanted to be better than them, but their success drove me to be more successful too. I don't know if you ever have that at school where you have people you check, you're talking.
Well, I used to a little bit, but people, like my friends don't even like really, like they do like ask me, but they don't like asking me.
Because they know that you're doing good.
They always are like, of course you gotta nail the test. And like when we were in micro econ last class, we were doing like a review game because we have our finals tomorrow, and like my whole like group of friends, there was like an open seat, but then this like random girl like sat in it like right before I could get there, and I was just like, okay, like I'll go with like these other guys I know, so like I went with like Max and Josh that like I play volleyball with, and like we ended up getting like third place in the review game, but my other friends like got last, and they're like, bro, you gotta get here earlier next time, like come on, dude, because like they like want me on their team because like I know all this stuff. But yeah, we reached the 20-minute mark, so we're good. But it was nice talking to you.
Just put it in a timer?
Oh yeah, look, the time's on top.
Okay.